My name is Emily Carter. I'm 28 years old. And for a long time, I thought the worst thing that could happen in a relationship was being cheated on. I was wrong. Sometimes the betrayal starts before anyone touches anyone else. Sometimes it starts with a phone lighting up during dinner. With a name your partner says too softly. With a laugh you don't understand, because it belongs to a world you were never invited into. For me, that world had a name. Vanessa Hale, Daniel's best friend. Daniel Brooks was 26 when we started dating. He was charming in that effortless way that made strangers trust him before he even finished a sentence. He remembered tiny details. He brought me coffee exactly how I liked it. He kissed my forehead when I was stressed and said things like, "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." And I believed him. For the first few months, being with Daniel felt easy. Warm. Safe. Like I had finally found someone who didn't make love feel like a performance. Then Vanessa started becoming less of a name and more of a presence. At first, I didn't think much of it. Daniel told me early on that Vanessa had been his ride or die since college. She was 27. Bold. Funny. Dramatic in the way people call passionate when they like you, and too much when they don't. He said she had been there for him during some rough years. And I respected that. Everyone has history. Everyone has friends. I wasn't trying to be the girlfriend who walked in and demanded he erase the people who mattered before me, but there's a difference between having a best friend and making your girlfriend feel like a guest star in someone else's love story. The first time I really noticed it was on a Tuesday night. Daniel and I had planned a quiet evening at my apartment. Nothing fancy. Takeout. A movie. Maybe falling asleep on the couch, like two exhausted adults pretending we still had energy after work. I had already ordered food. I had candles lit. Not because I was trying too hard, but because I wanted the night to feel like ours. Then his phone rang. He looked down, and his whole face changed. That was the first thing that hurt. Not the call. The face. "Vanessa?" I asked. Already knowing. He smiled like he couldn't help it. "Yeah." 1 second. 1 second became 15 minutes in my hallway. When he came back, he was grabbing his jacket. "Vanessa had a terrible day," he said. "I'm going to meet her for dinner." I stared at him, waiting for the second half of the sentence. "Do you want to come?" "I'll only be gone an hour." "I'm sorry." We had plans, but none of that came. He just stood there, keys in hand, like this was normal. "We had plans," I said quietly. "I know, Baba. But she's really upset." "Babe." The word was supposed to comfort me. Instead, it sounded like a curtain being pulled shut. "So, I'm just supposed to sit here with cold noodles," he sighed. Not angry. I'm just impatient. "Emily. It's Vanessa. You know how she is." No, that was the problem. I was starting to know exactly how she was, and worse, I was starting to know exactly how he was. When she called, he left that night with a quick kiss on my cheek and a promise to make it up to me. I sat on my couch with 2 containers of food, and the movie paused on the opening credits. Around midnight, he texted, "Still with V. Talk tomorrow, V." Like even her name had a special shortcut. I told myself not to overreact. I told myself mature women didn't get jealous of friendships. But then it kept happening. Movie nights became Vanessa emergencies. Dinner reservations became Vanessa needed him. A weekend plan became Vanessa had already asked first. And whenever I tried to explain that, I felt pushed aside. Daniel acted like I was turning something innocent into a crime. "She's my best friend," he would say. "I know." I would answer, "But I'm your girlfriend." He would look at me like that sentence exhausted him. The worst part was when I did get invited along, because somehow that felt even lonelier. Vanessa and Daniel had their own private language. Inside jokes from college. Stories that started with, "Remember that night," when, and ended with both of them laughing before I even understood the setup. I would sit there smiling politely, stirring my drink, Feeling like a woman watching her boyfriend on a date with someone else, Vanessa called him sweetheart. She called him babe. Ons? She touched his arm and said, "No one gets me like you do." Daniel didn't move away. He didn't correct her. He just smiled. Louder. When we were alone, I said, "Do you think maybe the pet names are a little much?" He laughed. Actually laughed. "Emily. That's just how Vanessa talks. She calls you babe. She calls everyone babe. She doesn't call me babe." He rolled his eyes. "Because you're looking for a problem." That sentence stayed with me, because after a while, I started wondering if maybe I was insecure. Maybe I was imagining the tension. Maybe I had watched too many people betray each other, and now I saw shadows where there were none. But then, his phone would buzz at midnight, and he would turn away from me to answer. There was one night I woke up around 2 in the morning and found his side of the bed empty. I heard his voice from the living room. Low and careful. I walked closer. He was on FaceTime. With Vanessa, she was crying. Or pretending to. I couldn't tell anymore. Daniel saw me and immediately lowered the volume. "I'll call you back," he said. When he came into the bedroom, I was sitting on the edge of the bed. "Why is Vanessa calling you at 2 in the morning? She's going through something. She's always going through something." His jaw tightened. "That's unfair." "No, Daniel. What's unfair is me waking up alone, while my boyfriend whispers to another woman in the dark." His expression hardened. And I knew before he said it, "You're making this weird." I almost laughed, because the pain had nowhere else to go. "I'm not making it weird," I said. "I'm noticing that it already is." He slept on the couch that night. The next morning, he acted like I owed him an apology. That was when something inside me shifted. Not enough to leave. Not yet. Love makes you patient, in ways that slowly humiliate you. So I tried harder. I swallowed comments. I gave him space. I told myself Daniel had chosen me. And that had to mean something, but every time Vanessa texted, he answered. Every time Vanessa called, he picked up. Every time I asked for reassurance, he made me feel like I was asking for control. And little by little, I stopped feeling like Daniel's girlfriend. I felt like the woman waiting outside a locked room, hearing laughter through the door. For weeks after that, I kept telling myself things would get better. Relationships go through rough patches. Right. People make mistakes. Friends can be overly involved. None of those things automatically mean a relationship is doomed. At least, that's what I kept repeating to myself every time Vanessa's name appeared on Daniel's phone. The problem was that reality kept proving me wrong. Every time I tried to move forward, another reminder appeared. Another canceled plan. Another interrupted date. Another moment where I felt invisible. The breaking point came 3 months later. Our anniversary. Daniel and I had been planning the trip for months. A small cabin in the mountains. No work. No distractions. No city noise. Just us. I desperately needed it. Not because I wanted a vacation. Because I wanted proof. Proof that we still mattered. Proof that our relationship came first. Proof that I wasn't losing a competition I never agreed to enter. We spent weeks planning everything. Hiking trails. Restaurants. Places to visit. For the first time in months, I felt excited. Maybe this would reset everything. Maybe being away together would remind us why we fell in love. Then, 3 days before we were supposed to leave, Daniel walked into my apartment looking nervous. Immediately. My stomach tightened. I knew that look. The same look people wear before disappointing you. "What's wrong?" I asked. He sat beside me. "Vanessa called." "Of course she did." My heart sank. "What happened?" "Nothing bad." The relief lasted less than a second, because then he continued. "There's a concert that weekend." I stared at him. "A concert?" "Yeah." "And," he rubbed the back of his neck, "it's that band Vanessa and I have loved since college." There it was. The word. Vanessa. Again. What does that have to do with our anniversary trip? Daniel hesitated. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "Do you think we could reschedule?" For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. Reschedule what? The trip? I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. Our anniversary trip. He nodded. So you can go to a concert with Vanessa? It's not like that. It sounds exactly like that. Daniel immediately became defensive. You don't understand. No. I understand perfectly. I stood up and started pacing. Months. We had planned this for months. Deposits paid. Time off. Approved. Everything arranged. And somehow a last-minute concert mattered more. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. He argued. So, is our anniversary. His jaw tightened. Emily. You're being unfair. I stopped walking. The words hit harder than they should have. Unfair. I was unfair. Not the man asking his girlfriend to move their anniversary for another woman. Me? You really don't see it. Do you see what? How insane this sounds. He groaned. There you go again. There I go again. You always make everything about Vanessa. I stared at him. My chest felt tight, because somehow, he still didn't understand. This isn't about Vanessa. Then, what is it about? It's about priorities. The room fell silent. For the first time. Daniel didn't have an immediate answer. I took a deep breath. I'm tired. Tired of what? Feeling second. His expression softened slightly, but not enough. Emily, no. I raised my hand. Please just listen. For once. He stayed quiet. I've spent a year pretending this doesn't bother me. I could hear my voice shaking. I've watched you cancel plans. Drop everything for her. Answer midnight calls. Let her call you sweetheart. Let her call you babe. Let her take up space that belongs in our relationship. His face darkened. You're exaggerating. There. I pointed at him. That's exactly the problem. What? Every single time I tell you how I feel, you dismiss it. He crossed his arms. Because you're making me choose. No. I shook my head. I'm asking for boundaries. The word seemed to irritate him immediately. Boundaries. Yes. I forced myself to stay calm. No more pet names. His eyes narrowed. No more treating every emotional crisis like a national emergency. Emily, I'm not finished. I took another breath. No more canceling plans with me because Vanessa suddenly wants attention. The room became very quiet. Daniel looked away. For a second. I thought maybe something was finally getting through. Then he spoke. And everything got worse. Vanessa thinks you're toxic. I froze. What? He sighed. She's worried about me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're discussing our relationship with her. It's not like that. It sounds exactly like that. She just thinks you're insecure. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. The last thread, holding my patience together, finally broke. So, let me get this straight. I stepped closer. You cancel our anniversary. You defend her? You tell her our private problems? And now you're quoting her opinions back to me. Daniel looked uncomfortable, but not ashamed. Just uncomfortable. Like I was making the conversation difficult. You're twisting things. No. My voice became frighteningly calm. For the first time. I'm seeing them clearly. His face hardened. What are you saying? I looked directly into his eyes. I'm saying, I don't think I can keep doing this. The silence afterward felt enormous. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. For the first time since we started dating. I wasn't trying to convince him. I wasn't trying to explain. I wasn't trying to make him understand. I was simply exhausted. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. So what now? I swallowed. The answer hurt, but not as much as staying silent. Now, you decide. His eyebrows pulled together. Decide what? Whether you're willing to put our relationship first? He stared at me. I could see disbelief spreading across his face. You'd really end things over this? No. I shook my head slowly. I'd end things because this has been happening for a year. Another long silence. Then I said the words that neither of us could take back. You need boundaries with Vanessa. His jaw tightened, and if I don't, I felt my heart crack, because suddenly, I already knew the answer. If you don't. I paused, then finished. We're done. The color drained from his face. Neither of us spoke again for several seconds. Finally, he grabbed his jacket. I need time to think. I nodded. So do I. He walked to the door, stopped, looked back. For a moment I thought he might choose us. Instead, he pulled out his phone. The screen lit up, a message from Vanessa. And without another word, he answered it. The door closed behind him, leaving me completely alone. For the first time, I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just wondering whether I had already lost him long before this conversation ever happened. The next 2 days were torture. Daniel barely contacted me. A few short texts. A few vague responses. Nothing meaningful. No explanation. No decision. Just silence. And honestly, that silence told me more than any argument ever could. Because if someone truly fears losing you, they don't disappear when the relationship is hanging by a thread. They fight, Daniel was thinking, and the fact that he needed to think about whether I deserved basic boundaries hurt more than I wanted to admit. Friday evening arrived. I was sitting on my couch, pretending to watch television, when someone knocked on my door. My stomach immediately dropped. I already knew who it was. Daniel stood outside looking exhausted. His eyes were red, his shoulders slumped, and for the first time in months, he looked genuinely afraid. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. Neither of us spoke until he sat down. The silence felt heavy, different, like something had shifted. Finally, he looked up. "I canceled the concert." I blinked. "What?" I told Vanessa I wasn't going by. For a moment, I genuinely didn't know what to say. I had prepared myself for another argument, another defense, another excuse. Not this. Why, I asked. Daniel swallowed hard. "Because you were right." The words sounded painful coming from him. "I've been putting her first." I stared at him, waiting, not trusting it. "Not yet," he continued. "I didn't see it before." His voice cracked slightly. Or maybe I didn't want to. For the first time since we'd met, Daniel wasn't defending himself. He wasn't defending Vanessa. He wasn't calling me insecure. He was simply being honest. I kept telling myself nothing inappropriate was happening. His eyes met mine, but that doesn't mean what I was doing was okay. Something inside my chest loosened. Just a little. "I hurt you." I remained silent, because I needed him to keep talking. Needed him to finally understand. "I kept expecting you to accept everything because Vanessa had always been there." He rubbed his face, and I never stopped to think about what that felt like for you. The room became quiet. A different kind of quiet. The kind that comes after someone finally tells the truth. "Why now?" I asked softly. His eyes lowered. "Because when you said you were done." He paused. "I realized I believed you." The honesty surprised me. More than the apology, more than the canceled concert, that, because for the first time, he seemed scared of losing me, instead of confident. I'd always stay. "I'm sorry, Emily." The words were simple, but they felt real. And somehow, that made them harder to hear, because real apologies force you to decide whether forgiveness is possible. I sat down across from him. "This isn't just about one concert." "I know." "It's not just about Vanessa." "I know." "It's an entire year." His eyes filled with regret. "I know." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel reached into his jacket pocket. "I need to tell you something else." Immediately, my stomach tightened. Something in his voice felt wrong, heavy, like the beginning of another disaster. "What is it?" He looked down at his hands, then back at me. "My ex contacted me." I froze. Rachel. I hadn't heard that name in almost a year. Daniel's ex-girlfriend. The woman he dated before me. What does Rachel want? His face went pale. For a moment, he looked genuinely terrified. Then he finally said it. "She's pregnant." The room seemed to tilt. I stared at him, unable to process the words. "What?" "She found out recently." His voice barely rose above a whisper. "And she believes I'm the father." Every thought disappeared. Every emotion collided at once. Shock, confusion, fear, disbelief. Pregnant. Father. Rachel. None of it made sense. "When did she tell you?" "A few days ago." A few days ago. Around the same time he had suddenly become distant. The same time he had started acting differently. The same time he had canceled the concert. Pieces started connecting, Just not in a way I understood. Are you sure it's yours? I don't know. The answer hit harder than I expected. Because uncertainty leaves room for imagination, and imagination is cruel. Daniel moved closer. I swear, I haven't been with Rachel since before we broke up. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did, but another part remembered all the lies I'd accepted before. Not outright lies, half-truths, omission, dismissals, things that slowly destroy trust. What happens now? I asked. He exhaled slowly. We get a paternity test. The word felt clinical, cold, like something from a legal document. Not our lives, not our future. Yet here we were. Neither of us knew what came next. The conversation lasted hours. We talked about every possible outcome. What if the baby was his? What if it wasn't? What would happen to us? Could we survive it? Could I? By midnight, I felt emotionally exhausted. But strangely, Daniel stayed. No phone calls, no messages, no interruptions. Just us. For the first time, in a very long time. The next morning we made breakfast together. Something simple. Coffee, eggs, toast. Nothing special. Yet it felt more intimate than most of the expensive dates we'd gone on. Because we were actually present. Together. No Vanessa. No distractions. No competition. And for a few hours, I let myself believe things might actually improve. Then I noticed something. Something small. Something strange. Daniel's phone was silent. Completely silent. No message. No calls. Nothing. Normally, Vanessa texted him constantly. Morning. Afternoon. Night. Sometimes dozens of messages a day. Now, nothing. At first, I ignored it. Then, I noticed Daniel checking his phone repeatedly. Not responding. Checking. Waiting. Almost expecting but nothing came. By Saturday evening, the silence felt impossible to ignore. Finally, I asked, "Haven't heard from Vanessa lately?" The question caught him off guard. His expression flickered. Just for a second. Then disappeared. She's giving us space. The answer sounded rehearsed. Like he practiced it. Really? He nodded. She knows we're trying to work things out. I wanted to accept that explanation. I really did. But something felt wrong. Vanessa wasn't the type to step back quietly. She never had been. If anything, she fought harder when she felt excluded. Yet suddenly, she had vanished. No calls. No messages. No emergencies. No creases. Nothing. The entire situation felt unnatural. Almost staged. That night, I lay awake beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts racing. Rachel's pregnancy. Vanessa's disappearance. Daniel's sudden apology. Everything had happened at the same time. Too close together. Too perfectly. Like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't quite see. Beside me, Daniel slept peacefully. But I couldn't. Because deep down, a quiet voice kept whispering the same thing. Something was still missing. And whatever it was, it had the potential to destroy everything all over again. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the same questions came back. Why had Vanessa disappeared? Why had everything changed so suddenly? And why did it feel like Daniel was still hiding something? By Sunday morning, the uneasiness had become impossible to ignore. Daniel was in the shower. When I walked into the living room, his phone was sitting on the coffee table, face up, unlocked. For several seconds, I simply stared at it. I wasn't the kind of woman who went through people's phones. At least, I never wanted to be. Trust was supposed to make things like that unnecessary. But trust had been damaged long before that morning. And now, all I had were questions. Questions Daniel wasn't answering. Questions that were slowly destroying my peace of mind. My hand moved before I could stop myself. I picked up the phone. Immediately guilt hit me. Then curiosity pushed it aside. I opened his messages. Nothing unusual at first. Work conversations. Family texts. A few messages from friends. Then I searched for Vanessa. And my heart stopped. There were no new messages. No recent conversations. No missed calls. Nothing. At first, I thought Daniel had deleted everything. Then I noticed something. A small notification. At the bottom of the conversation. Blocked. Vanessa had blocked him. I blinked. Read it again. Blocked. My pulse started racing. Why would Vanessa block Daniel? After everything? After a year of practically living in each other's pockets? It made no sense. Feeling sick, I scrolled upward through older messages. Further. Then I found it. The conversation that changed everything. A conversation from several weeks earlier. Before Daniel's apology. Before the cancelled concert. Before Rachel's pregnancy announcement. My eyes locked onto the screen. Rachel says she's pregnant. Vanessa, are you serious? Daniel, yes. Vanessa, does Emily know? Daniel, no. Vanessa, don't tell her until you know for sure. My stomach dropped. I kept reading. Daniel, what if it's mine? Vanessa, then you're screwed. Daniel, this is a disaster. Vanessa, you need to figure it out before Emily finds out. I felt physically ill. My hands started shaking. The messages continued. Daniel, I never wanted any of this. Vanessa, then maybe you shouldn't have kept talking to Rachel behind Emily's back. I froze. Read the sentence again. Behind Emily's back. The room suddenly felt too small. Too hot? Too difficult to breathe in. I kept scrolling. Daniel, it wasn't like that. Vanessa, you told me you were done with her. Daniel, I thought I was. Vanessa. Clearly not. The words blurred for a moment. Not because I couldn't read them, because I didn't want to. The truth was finally standing in front of me, and it was uglier than I imagined. Daniel hadn't cheated with Vanessa, but he had lied, repeatedly, while accusing me of being insecure, while making me feel unreasonable, while convincing me I was overreacting. He had secretly remained involved with Rachel, his ex, the woman who was now pregnant, and Vanessa had known the entire time. The conversation continued for several more pages. The deeper I read, the worse it became. Vanessa wasn't encouraging him to be honest. She was helping him hide things, helping him delay, telling me, helping him control the damage. Then I reached the final messages. Daniel, what do I do now? Vanessa, choose. Daniel, what? Vanessa, Rachel, and the baby, or Emily. Several minutes passed before Daniel responded. Then came the message that shattered whatever remained of my trust. Daniel, I don't know. I stared at those 3 words. I don't know. Not Emily. Not my relationship. Not the woman I love. I don't know. At that moment, I understood everything. The apology, the cancelled concert, the sudden effort. None of it had started because he realized my value. It started because Rachel's pregnancy had forced him to face consequences. I set the phone down. Carefully, quietly. Then I sat on the couch and waited. A few minutes later, Daniel walked out of the hallway, drying his hair. He smiled. The smile disappeared. The second he saw my face, Emily, I didn't answer. His eyes moved to the phone, and immediately he knew. The color drained from his face. Oh no. The words came out as a whisper. How long? I asked. His shoulders collapsed. Emily, how long? His voice broke. A few months. I laughed once. A broken sound. A few months? Please, let me explain. Explain what? Tears filled my eyes. The part where you lied. The part where you hid Rachel. The part where Vanessa helped cover it up. His face crumpled. I was scared. I stood up. So was I. Silence. Painful silence. The kind that follows irreversible truths. I never stopped loving you. His voice shook. I believed him. That was the worst part. I believed he loved me. And he still lied. Because love without honesty is just another form of selfishness. You should have told me. I know. You should have trusted me. I know. You should have given me the choice. Tears streamed down his face. I know. But knowing now didn't matter. The damage was already done. A week later, the paternity test results arrived. Daniel was the father. Rachel's child was his. The uncertainty was over. The future was not. Daniel called repeatedly, texted, apologized, begged for another chance. But every message felt like it belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. The truth was simple. I could have survived the pregnancy. I could have survived the complicated future. I could have survived fear. What I couldn't survive was deception. Trust had been broken too many times. First, by the emotional triangle with Vanessa, then by the secrets, then by the lies, and eventually, even love runs out of room to breathe. The last time I saw Daniel was outside my apartment building. His eyes were red, his expression exhausted. I really did love you. I nodded. I know. Then why can't we fix this? For a moment, I almost cried, because part of me wished we could. But some things don't break all at once. They crack slowly, day after day, lie after lie, until one day they finally collapse. You didn't lose me because of Rachel. His eyes lifted. You lost me because every time I asked for the truth, I swallowed hard. You chose something else. Neither of us spoke again. After a long moment, I turned and walked away. This time he didn't follow. And for the first time in over a year, I wasn't competing with Vanessa. I wasn't questioning my worth. I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I chose myself.